and newest expert.
Yes, she's from the Center for Severe Weather Research in Boulder, Colorado, and she's joining us this spring to help us dissect thunderstorms and analyze their tornadic potential. Welcome, Karen. It's a pleasure to work with you, and I know you have a lot to offer. She's been in the field, has done a lot of work researching tornadoes up close.
That's true, yes. I'd be more than happy to talk about them.
Yeah, you got your PhD from Purdue, I see that, and you were a member of the Doppler on Wheels team. That's with Josh Worman, and you guys done some groundbreaking research on tornadoes.
Yeah, well, we certainly get up pretty close to tornadoes, and we're able to see a lot of things that other people aren't able to see with the mobile radars.
It's pretty amazing stuff, and we're going to be glad to have you on board and give some expertise on the severe weather that does crop up as we move through the season. Let's have a look right now across parts of Virginia and North Carolina. Karen, you and I were looking at this, and we earlier in the day thought, well, they'll probably put out a tornado watch, the Storm Prediction Center, and they did until 7 o'clock Eastern time. But right now, kind of looking inside that tornado watch, you and I are both looking at some storms thinking they're not particularly severe looking right now. They seem to need some work to them to get through.
Right, yeah, I mean, for the most part, I mean, there's a cluster of storms going on. There's a lot of convection happening in Virginia and North Carolina, but really they don't look very organized at all, and the shear really isn't, the deep layer shear isn't really that supportive of very organized convection at the moment.
And that's this group of storms that we're looking at right in here. You know, a lot of times if you're looking for severe thunderstorms that are capable of producing tornadoes, those tend to be discrete storms. Right now we're kind of looking at storms that are almost organized in a line with very little separation between them. That suggests to us that they are not likely to produce tornadoes.
Right, I mean, again, certainly there's a lot of convection going on. Out in front of these storms, you still are getting warm, moist air flowing in there, but really the deep layer shear isn't there, but there is a little bit of low-level shear that might get these going. There's a warm front in the vicinity, so there is some convergence there, but again, it doesn't really look like.
So you're saying that probably the areas that would be still untapped and most likely to support severe weather would be out ahead of this first line? Would you say that's right?
Right, but again, I mean, there is a lot of convection going on as the day's going on, and it's becoming less and less likely that these have tornadic potential. I
think that's right, and so we're seeing a lot of clouds and a lot of rain across the area. That's kind of limiting the instability across this region, so I think you're right. The longer we see these storms remain not severe, probably the less likely it will be that they will produce severe weather later on in the day.
Right, yeah, I mean, again, and the shear isn't really forecast to increase that much throughout the day, so that would be something that would help get these organized, which...
Right, the stronger the shear, right, the more likely these storms can remain long-lived and produce severe weather. Across the region, we've got some, risk here across a very large area of the country that is still in the area that we're watching, but, looking at the visible satellite pictures, there are some clues to hopefully suggesting to us that maybe the severe weather risk is not going to last too much longer.
Right, and then certainly you have here the approaching cold front, so eventually this whole system is going to move off into the Atlantic in the next day or so.
And then once that does, severe weather threat is over.
Which is good news for the East Coast.
I know, it seems like days on end we've been dealing with this.
Yes,
but once that front moves through, that's going to end it all, and that will be good. That will be certainly in the next couple of days. But let's time it out for everybody, Karen, and talk about what we're seeing on the forecast of the radar here across North Carolina and Virginia.
Right, so again, we're looking at a lot of this convection that's forecast kind of in the region that we've been talking about, back behind, that's when the cold front's moving through. And you can see that, again, in the next day or so, this cold front eventually is going to move off the coast, and along with it, most of the convection.
And welcome relief at that, because then we could put the severe weather risk to bed for at least a few days
anyway. For a few days, yes.
Because we all know spring, it kind of winds up again.
Right. Certainly early spring, May, we're really getting into the big month for tornadoes and potential for big tornadic storms.
That's the heart of tornado season, May and June, so stay tuned for all the latest. Karen will be here with us all season long. Great to have you. Thank you very much. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you, guys, because I tell you what, we are still looking at the days ahead of this system. As the doctors mentioned, we talk about this system at least taking another 36 hours before it totally clears the coast. Out ahead of it, we still have some storms. You can see around the D.C. area, right in the Capital Beltway, getting heavy rain as we speak. We've already had reports of about 2.5 inches of rain, so some localized flooding in and around D.C. And even as you head up to Baltimore and the Aberdeen area, you can see pockets of heavier rain here. Flash flooding could be a huge concern across this region as well. And then as we cross over the state line into Pennsylvania, including around Philadelphia, all the way to New York City, and look at Massachusetts and Connecticut and Rhode Island, just really being inundated with some moderate to heavy rain. So flood watches have been issued all across this region. Again, watch out now for rising waters across the area, because throughout the rest of the afternoon we'll be following the flow of moisture across the area. Here's a look now. How much rain can we expect? 1 to 2 inches, generally speaking, but some